What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Remote Investor Show. I'm Michael Albom, and today I'm joined by my co-hosts,
Tom Schneider,
Pierre Carrillo.
And for this first episode, we're going to give you all a quick intro into us as individuals, who we are as people and investors, and then we're going to be diving into today's topic. So I'll take the forefront here. So my name is Michael Albom. I work full-time in the property insurance industry for the better part of a decade now. I'm also a remote investor. I've been investing since 2014 with an emphasis on investing in areas that are not where I live. And we wanted to bring you all a lot of the content about remote investing, about what it's like to live a life every day as an investor, all while working a full-time job, so that everybody out there who is in the same boat can do the same. Tom, you want to go next?
Sure. Yeah, my name is Tom Schneider, and I am a remote investor. And specifically what I mean by that is starting in around 2012, I started saving money and acquiring rental properties outside of where I live. So I live in Northern California Bay Area, started acquiring properties in Florida, in Georgia, in Pennsylvania, and kind of all over the place. And I've been doing that, for the last 12 years or so. A little bit personal about me. I work in technology product for these types of companies doing single family rental and kind of peripheral stuff, and very system minded in the way that I approach investing and general kind of career stuff. So that's a little bit about me.
Love it. Pierre?
My name is Pierre Carrillo. I met these guys about 5 years ago, and then I knew nothing about real estate. I was making my pivot into the marketing space from the performing arts world. And just got into the topic of real estate from working next to these guys, and have transacted on one property. I've learned a lot through it, but I'm still a beginner. So I'm here as the moderator, producer, and someone to ask the dumb questions and bring the topic back down to earth.
You're selling yourself short. You transacted on one investment property, but then you just bought a primary residence, right?
Oh, yeah. But that's not...
That counts.
That's a little off topic, but still a lot of great experience in there.
A topic that'd be fun to dig in the future about, digging out a pool that was illegally covered. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Not super remote. I mean, very opposite of remote.
Very local.
Very local. Yeah, hyper local.
Interesting thing I'd love to kind of dig into in a future episode.
I definitely have some tips after that experience for sure.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, today I think I wanted to talk about, because of where we are in the market, what are 3 things that people can do given the fact that we have both high interest rates and high real estate prices? Because supply and demand curves and just economics 101 tells us when interest rates go up, demand should go down. But we just, A, I don't think have seen that, and B, the prices haven't fallen with the rising interest rates. So would love to dive into this topic a little bit more on a couple tangible things that our listeners can do today to help combat that and position themselves to be in a better spot to be able to actually make a move. So one idea that just came to me about things that people can do is just look for seller finance deals. Like if you're having to go to the bank to get your financing for these deals and the prices are high on the asset itself and the interest rate is high, a lot of people, you're just not seeing cash flow. And so I just thought, hey, what if we went seller financed for some of these deals and went to the seller directly? And so, Tom, do you just want to give like a quick description of what seller financing is for anyone who might not be familiar?
I'm going to start with the why, Michael. So, these issues around high interest rates, like while it's like kind of painful for buyers and not, darn it, I can't get my kind of traditional financing, it is equally painful for sellers, just because that really kind of tightens the market up on who is buying from them. So, I think like kind of a fun lens to take a look at this is like at the other side of the table of these folks who are selling. I love to do like 1031 exchanges and all kinds of stuff like that. And, the type of buyers out there is just a little bit tighter. So I personally have not done a seller finance deal. So I don't want to like speak out of pocket. I could kind of provide some generalities, but Michael, I think you might be a little bit of better attuned or repertoire kind of to talk about this type of kind of non-standard creative way in this type of environment way to finance.
I love that you mentioned the selling side too, because I think that there's frustration in the market, both on the buyer side, but equally on the sell side. And I think like what I've been hearing from a lot of fellow investors is that a lot of these sellers are still living in the circa 2021, 2022 era, thinking that they're going to get those prices because interest rates are like 2 and 3% on a lot of even investment properties. And so people are like, yeah, I can sell my property because people can buy this and pay this price. And the reality is that they just can't pay those same prices given today's interest rates. So taking a step back for just a second, like just a seller finance deal, what is it at its core? It's basically the seller is the bank. And so Pierre, if you owned a property and you were looking to sell it, and this works really well when the property is owned free and clear. So if Pierre, you didn't have a mortgage on the property, and let's say you were selling it for $200,000. If I, as a buyer, were to come to you and say, hey, Pierre, I'm going to buy, I'd like to buy your property. I'll pay you $200,000, but I need financing. The options for me as the buyer is I can go to a traditional lender, a bank or a credit union and say, okay, I need 80% of this purchase price. And they might give me a loan or a mortgage for 160 grand. I think I did my math right. I think that's about 80% of the purchase price. And then I've got to come up with the extra 40 grand as my down payment, plus whatever closing costs and stuff, such that Pierre, you get your full 200 grand when we close this transaction. But what a seller finance deal says is, Pierre, because you own this property free and clear, you don't have to go pay off a mortgage on your end. You're going to collect all of the proceeds that come to you from the sale of the property. I can look to you and say, hey, Pierre, what if you gave me a mortgage? You're going to finance this deal for me. Then you and I can be as creative as possible around the terms when it comes to the mortgage or the financing. And the terms, I think, are one of the biggest undersung heroes of real estate deals in general. If we change the terms of a deal, like just simply the amortization, how long the loan is paid back over, that can have a significant impact on the monthly payment. And so instead of, again, going to a bank and then them telling me, dictating to me what the terms are, okay, Michael, you're going to have a 30-year amortization with a principal and interest payment at 7% interest. This is what the payment is. Pierre, you and I can work out, okay, what is it that you need, Pierre, as a seller to finance this deal for me? And I think that's, go ahead, Tom.
Oh, so I am picking up what you're putting down, Michael. I think though, as an investor, is there like a really well made path to do this if you haven't done it before? I feel like if I was going to go do this, there's some details that I don't necessarily know. There's there's probably some way that I might be getting, I don't know, hosed or screwed, or how would you kind of articulate going into some sort of non-standard kind of financial thing? Because I know when I do a regular loan, I feel pretty good. It's a lot of them done all the time. I feel like there's just way more room to get kind of a raw deal with seller finance. So I'd love to hear you speak to that.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. And it's funny because I've actually never closed a seller finance deal, but I've come pretty darn close on the sell side. Somebody approached me about seller financing and I was open to the idea. And so we were kind of dancing around it. It ended up not happening. But I think you're right. There's no governing body, I would say, around seller finance deals like there is in the lending world that protects both buyers and sellers. And so it's a little bit kind of like the Wild West. We can be as creative as we want, but then that gives rise and space to people taking advantage. So I would say definitely involve your agent. And your agent should know, you should have an agent that has done seller financing before if they're going to be involved in the transaction. And two, you're definitely going to involve a real estate attorney that's well-versed in these types of deals. Whether on the buy or the sell side, you want to be protecting yourself from those unknowns. And there's going to be contracts going back and forth that you're going to want to have your attorney review. And so I would say at the end of the day, these deals can be costly because you're going to want to have your attorney reviewing these things. But by that same token, you're not going to have traditional finance charges like you would at a bank. So it might be 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, but definitely you want to kind of CYA, make sure you have people that understand these transactions, reviewing everything you're signing your name to. Again, both on the buy and the sell side.
I like it. Makes sense.
Tom, you might have touched on it briefly, but it went in one ear and out the other when you said it. Why did the seller want to do this?
Yeah, totally. So a seller might want to do this. Let's say, you have you own a property, you own an asset, and all of your potential buyers are stuck at 7% or 8% or whatever it's at. And let's say, you went up to a potential buyer and said like, hey, you're going to increase the buyer's capacity to buy by lowering their monthly payment by offering an interest rate is below that of what is available through like the standard bank. So, your kind of like net of, total money collected is you're going to get that listing price or whatever you're trying to sell it at. You're going to have a better opportunity to get that if you're providing financing that is advantageous. Now, as from a seller's perspective, I feel like this could be his own episode, and I think like at some point it will be, the mechanics of the money coming back to you is going to be a little bit different. And, Michael, you can correct me if this is not right, but it's going to be kind of more incremental because you're acting as the bank, which I think in some cases is kind of fun, in that, you're continuing to make money off of this asset through, the interest you're making on that loan that you're selling. But you're also providing a great benefit to that buyer and that they're able to get an interest rate, that is a little better. I feel like there's like probably like a marketplace, a product. My product data is turning on and like, wow, why isn't there like a standardized like seller finance? And, maybe there is, holler at us, in the comments on wherever you're listening,
We'll do a little research.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Tom, just to kind of piggyback off what you said, I think that there's opportunities for sellers even to maybe make the same interest rate that lenders are offering in the marketplace, or even more, simply by changing the amortization period. Most investors are familiar in the residential space with a 30-year amortization mortgage, 30-year fixed or 10-year fixed or 5-year fixed, amortized over 30 years. But if as a seller, you say, hey, let's go to 40 years or 45 years, that just spreads out the payment and you could still be making the same interest rate that a lender is going to be giving that person. So I love the idea. I think we should do an episode on reasons to sell or finance a deal, but just kind of to give you an insider look at what it was like, because having had this conversation with myself and thought experiment, the whole reason people own property for the most part is to earn cash flow on it. There's the appreciation factor as well too. But if you're earning money every single month as a property owner in terms of cash flow, great, that's awesome. Well, if you sell the property, most of us think, okay, well now that cash flow goes away, I need to go replace it with another cash flowing asset. Well, if you sell or finance the deal, you can still make cash flow every single month. But now instead of having to deal with the property itself and the insurance and the taxes and the tenants and the repairs, you now are dealing with a borrower. And so you're still making cash flow in the form of monthly mortgage payments.
Right. And you're originating that in a high interest rate environment where if you were to sell as a lump sum and try to put that money into another property somewhere else, you'd be dealing with those high interest rates yourself. So
exactly. You're going to have to go get a mortgage.
Yeah. You're just taking the loan as the asset.
That's exactly it. The loan becomes the asset. So I think that's a perfect way to say it, Pierre. And I want to keep us moving forward because I think, Tom, you nailed it. We could absolutely do a whole episode about this. But so I think the second thing that people should be considering in this high price, high interest rate environment is looking for deals that have been sitting on the market for a long time. And Tom, I know that you're a very advantageous buyer when it comes to procuring your deals. So give us some insights on why people, why is that something people should be considering right now?
I think there's some sellers who don't care and can just like afford to let it sit for like 100 whatever days. But I'm going to dovetail this thing into two pieces. One, it's, getting offers in on homes that have been sitting for a while. And then two, just getting more offers in, like doing more kind of like, reps, right, of like underwriting and like offering. So, I've done this strategy. I'd say it doesn't necessarily matter like what the environment is kind of like identifying those homes that have been sitting, a little bit longer. I will say though, important to kind of have your eyes wide open while looking at these because there could be some kind of little local thing like, oh, it's right by the railroad tracks, or oh, it's there's a loud dog next door or something like that. So, I
there's
think
6 months worth of manual labor in the backyard.
there's an illegal pool or there's an illegal filled in pool with trouble. So, I say that with a caveat and that, you still want to have that same level of diligence when going through diligence, level of rigor. But I really like this exercise and kind of dovetailing it with, doing it like a bunch and kind of getting those reps in the way that you're evaluating and underwriting. Cause that doesn't cost any money. And those are skills like muscles that you're going to build over time. The more properties you looked at and the more kind of like pro formas that you're filling out. So I think this is a great strategy in kind of a tighter environment, is kind of identifying those longer sitting properties.
Yeah, I think that those are both great points to make. The whole reason I brought it up is I think that so many investors, whether it be a homeowner or an investor, look at a property, see it's overpriced, and then move on and are on to the next one. And so if you never get a second chance at making a first impression. And so a lot of these properties are passed by simply because the price doesn't make sense and are never going to be revisited by that potential buyer. And so we as investors might have the opportunity to come pick up on something if it was overpriced to begin with, and maybe it's had some price reductions because people have already passed on it. And so targeting properties that have been sitting for a while, maybe because they were overpriced, or it could be exactly like you mentioned, Tom, that there's something wrong with them or something hyper local about the property that makes it undesirable. Even still, maybe we need to get a little bit more creative as investors, as buyers. Maybe we need to be able to take on a little bit more value add, a little bit more hair as part of a deal in today's high interest rate and high priced environment. We're not going to be able to find the perfect deal at the perfect price because those are all tending to get nabbed up pretty quick. So I love that you said that. The third thing that people should be cognizant of and thinking about in today's environment is just save more. Like, take this time to get the reps in, like you mentioned, Tom, to get really to hone your craft, get really good at the analysis piece, at the identifying properties piece, all the while turbocharging your savings. So cutting expenses, cutting out frivolous spending, whatever that looks like for you as an individual. Look to start hoarding cash, right? As much as you can, such so that when things eventually do change, whether it's pricing or whether that's interest rates, and they will, right? Because markets run in cycles. You're ready.
Yeah. And I think we're in a really interesting time in that, a lot of the mechanisms that are causing these super high interest rates, they're also like allowing for like super high savings accounts that have like pretty high. So, I mean, I've seen north of 5.5% in a savings account, So being
crazy.
really proactive on that front. I know, a lot of stock market, like index funds have been ripping. What I like to kind of do on this front is just love a drawing, love a flow chart. It's just kind of like all right, my different income systems are going in. I'm allocating XYZ to this much to the savings account that's getting whatever, 5.5%, all of these things. But I would, advocate, writing it down, if it's maybe just like, it's just like a scrap piece of paper or, something more fancy, just so you can like kind of see like that fund flow and where it's going, and optimizing, kind of like turbocharging, as Michael put, your savings that you have, being proactive about it.
I dig it, man. I dig it. I'm curious, question for you both. What are you guys doing right now when it comes to the investment space? Are you waiting? Are you watching? Are you actively investing? Give us all an insider's look.
Similar. I just found out wife is pregnant with third kid, so like not dedicating like massive amounts of time to proactively kind of underwriting stuff. So more or less standing pat, like with the portfolio that I have. Kind of filling up little savings accounts here and there, and again being proactive about that. So probably more in that like option 3 bucket that we were talking about. It. I love the idea of getting into seller finance deals. Like you were kind of like referencing before, just because that makes a ton of sense in this type of environment, both on the sell and the buy side. Yeah. How about yourself?
Awesome. It's funny, similar. I spent probably all of 2023 getting all of my financing in order because of the announcement that interest rates were going to be rising. So I just closed in September a big cash out refinance deal. So I've got some dry powder, as they say, that I'm sitting on, waiting to see what happens with prices and interest. And I've made a couple offers on things that I've seen that I wanted to be opportunistic on, and nothing happened. I just sold a 7 unit out of my portfolio because I got a great price for it. And I said, hey, let's put up some more savings. And then I actually just launched my own real estate education platform called MyFi Academy. So I've been really focused on that. And so if something pops up, I'll absolutely take a swing at it, take a pass at it. But I've been so heads down, focused on a couple of other things at the moment. So I'm just kind of waiting and watching too. And we'll see. We'll see. I mean, they talk about interest rates coming down, but I'm curious just to get your guys' thoughts as a gut reaction. When interest rates come down, where do you think prices are going?
It's hard to imagine them not going like up, you know? I mean, I think there's a lot of like institutional buyers that are still like somewhat active. I mean, a lot of them are now kind of getting into like build to rent type stuff. But I think just from the like owner occupied, I think is going to get a little bit more competitive. I would assume, buying in this sort of $150,000 to $300,000 range, where like that gets a lot more competitive for kind of like owner occupied stuff. I would say that. I'd say the other thing I'm doing right now is that I just kind of always do is I have a couple of like targeted searches with like Zillow and Redfins just to kind of keep my finger on the pulse in markets that I like and identify any kind of new stuff that's coming out, as just sort of like a regular kind of hygiene of just knowing the markets that I like to invest in.
Pierre?
Yeah, we're watching the interest rates just so we can refinance because we did buy last year. So that would be nice. I'm looking at you guys with your sub 3, sub 4 interest rates, and
I'm in the same boat as you. I bought a new primary last October. I'm sitting at a 6.5% rate. I'm curious, Pierre, because you just bought last year as well. When you were going through that process, did you have this kind of interest rate question in mind, saying, "Hey, rates are high right now. If they do come down, prices are only going to go up. So let's buy at this price today because prices are likely only to go higher from here"?
Totally. Over 30 years, it just made sense. It's not the most optimal time to buy, but we wanted to start a family. We wanted to get going, and it is the price that we had to pay today. If interest rates do come down, we'll be happy to refinance. But we also made the calculation knowing that we could afford it at the rate we bought at.
I think there's a quote that Michael's like itching to say, but I'm going to steal it from him.
Do it.
Okay. All right. I got that. Got to get it right. It's you marry your house, you date your mortgage. Is that the right thing? Is that the right?
Oh, it's funny. I didn't have anything in my back pocket, so I was like, I'm curious to see what you're going to cook up. I love that. I think that's a great quote.
In your subconscious, you were thinking about it. Is that the right? So, I mean, you date the rate. The theme is like
you date the rate, you marry them. You marry the property,
your mortgage. Like, oh yeah, you might be seeing it for now, but you can see
maybe you marry your basis.
Yeah, sure. There we go. Yeah, I think the same analogy kind of works with mortgage and home.
Well, this is great, guys. We should wrap things up here, but any final thoughts for folks listening on things to think about, consider, given the fact that we are finding ourselves in a high interest rate and high price environment?
Get at bats, underwrite homes, kind of sharpen the saw, all of that jazz is really important. Because you really don't know when things are going to turn around. And somebody had a crystal ball, like, man, they'd be making a lot of money. So I think put yourself in a position to jump when you by looking at a lot of deals, underwrite them, all that good stuff. Because you really don't know when it's going to turn. So that would be my 10 cents. Yeah.
No, I think that's great. And I just had this visual pop into my head. Anyone who doesn't know me, I'm a very visual person, and so I see life in pictures. Some people I think in words, I think in pictures. I just had this vision of like, do you remember that scene in Jurassic Park when the raptors are like testing the fence and like the crazy cage, and the guy is like, they're learning. Yeah. And I think, Tom, to your point, is like, do your at bats, underwrite the deals, but also test stuff. Like, go make offers, because you'll test the market. You'll see. You never know unless you ask. And so maybe the market is still really hot and really tight, but you happen to find the seller that's open to taking an under market offer, right? So I think get your at bats in, start building those muscles, and then test this stuff, because making offers is free.
Love it. Yeah. And it's like, I don't know, there's a whole psychology thing to it. And that definitely counts as at bat is making an offer, like that whole kind of fun cycle.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, everyone, for hanging out with us. Really appreciate it. We look forward to catching you on the next episode.
Thanks, everyone.
Happy investing.
Happy investing.